The fastest growing role in B2B tech today isn't what you think. It's not sales and it's not marketing. It's revenue operations. And yet, if you tried to get a degree in it, you'd find nothing. No formal training, no clear roadmap. In today's episode, we're sitting down with Joel Arnold, the founder of Arnold GTM Advisors, to break down why RevOps and GTM strategy has become so critical, why so many companies struggle to scale, and how AI is reshaping the way businesses think about revenue. If you're running a business, scaling a startup, or just trying to understand the future of go-to-market strategy, this is an episode you won't want to miss. What gap in the market did you see that pushed you to start GTM Advisors in the first place?
Yeah. So Arnold GTM Advisors came about as a result of two things. One, first of all, there was like a pretty big demand in revenue operations or go-to-market operations within the B2B SaaS industry. We're not only involved in B2B SaaS, but I think that's kind of the crux and the genesis of the organization. And what I saw over the last couple of years is like LinkedIn, for example, they do a list of like the most in-demand jobs in the country, US or in the world. And I would say over the last 5 years, revenue operations has been in the top 3, I think 2 or 3 times. So there's clearly a lot of demand for this kind of work that we do, but also there's not a lot of educational opportunities for people to learn how to do the job. So it's not like, let's say, an accounting or finance role or a marketing role where you can go to school for it, you can get a degree in it. A lot of people that are sort of pushed into go-to-market operations or revenue operations find their way to it through, I was an ex-salesperson and I was interested in the operational side, or I was a financial analyst and someone said it was my responsibility, so I learned how to do it. It's like that kind of stuff. And what happens is when there's a huge demand for a job and there's not a lot of people that have been educated on how to do it, yeah, some people find their way into learning how to do it. They have an apprenticeship kind of a model or whatever. But most people just kind of get foisted. It kind of gets foisted upon their shoulders. And I've seen a lot of people burn out, struggle really hard to do the job. And having been lucky enough to kind of been doing it for a while and kind of getting in early days and sort of on the ground floor of the industry, I felt like I had a lot to teach and to share and to offer. And so a lot of the projects that I do are either sort of in support of people that are, I guess, more junior, but also doing the role. And I kind of act as sort of an senior advisor to them, or I kind of fill in the role of, let's say, the right-hand person to like a CRO. And I help them sort of take the strategy and sort of translate it into, okay, well, here's how we're going to design the marketing automation tool, or here's the kind of marketing content strategy that you need, or here's the Salesforce instance tweaks that you're going to want to employ. And so that's kind of doing that sort of work has led me to, there was a demand in the market. And I'm just like, well, might as well incorporate myself and start something here. Because it is the work that I enjoy doing. I really do love it.
That's awesome. If you had to describe like what your process looks like to someone who's maybe not super familiar with RevOps or who has a more young business and maybe they don't have a very developed sales and acquisition system and everything going on, how would you describe the process a little bit?
Yeah, it's you're asking the definition question. What is RevOps in a way there? That's actually a hard one to answer. And a lot of people struggle with it. And if you ask 5 different people who even do know what the work that I do is, you might get 5 different answers as far as what the definition is. So for me, there's kind of 2 different aspects of it. The first aspect is understanding how to take the idea of a business. Who is our target market? Who's our ideal customer profile? And sort of doing the strategic and analytical aspects of codifying that and building, potentially going a step deeper and building a process around that. So the business aspect of it is sort of the first half. The second half of it is taking that and translate it into tools and technology, and then enabling people in order to use those things to have a consistent approach to things, to track and monitor and report on the right things. And so you have to be both a business thinker and a technologist in a way. And as, 10,000 different sales and marketing platforms get launched on an annual basis with the advent of AI, that's even more. Everybody has an app. Everybody has a mom and pop shop these days. And sort of being able to weed through all that stuff requires that you're constantly learning and you're constantly figuring out how to plug that new technology into the thing. And so it's a very fast moving thing. You kind of have to be a lot of things to a lot of different people. But generally, go-to-market or revenue operations spans the worlds of marketing, sales, and then customer success or retention. and making all of those systems sort of talk to each other and have a coherent motion between each of those handoffs and rules and like rules of responsibility and what are we measuring and that kind of stuff up. And so it's a pretty broad remit. Hopefully that it did it justice. I know
Yeah,
it's just really hard to define that as like a single thing.
of course. It's
We,
a
we
lot
do it.
of moving parts going on. And I'm sure it's evolving too. Like you said, there's AI and all these tools coming out. I'm sure it kind of influences your own process too, like how you deliver, how you guide clients. So what would be, I guess, the number one myth about RevOps that you wish more people understood?
Honestly, it might be the definitional question. When I got started in it, there wasn't even really a name for it as revenue operations. Revenue operations came about, I probably started hearing that about 2017, 2018 was the first time I heard
Mm-hmm.
that. I've been doing this sort of work since 2015. People still don't know what it is. If you ask most people, most people's definition is going to be something along the lines of they're like the Salesforce administrators or they're the HubSpot
Mm,
technologists. And most people see the role as a technology role, largely because if you've got all these different roles that need to be filled because there's a lot of demand, people that know the technology are going to kind of get first crack at filling that void. And so for most people, their experience of revenue operations is the technologist.
I
And
see.
that's perfectly fine. If that becomes a definition of revenue operations in everybody's mind, we'll just name what I do something different. And I think that's kind of where the go-to-market piece of it comes from. But that's kind of the misnomer. I see it as both the strategy and the technology across marketing, sales, and retention, where a lot of people don't.
Okay. Yeah, my understanding was go to market is more the who and the what sort of, and then RevOps was kind of the how, like the more technical aspect. But
Yeah,
yeah.
I think that's a pretty common understanding these days, and it's definitely moving in that direction. So, especially over the last 2 or 3 years, I have seen it move that way, which is why I say I
Uh-huh.
do both go to market and I do RevOps
Right. Okay.
because it helps cover all my bases, I suppose.
Yeah, and you say there's a lot of demand. So do clients typically find you, or how do you approach your own client acquisition? Like, for example, a lot of software companies might struggle educating their own clients on the value of their service because there's so many probably similar products out there and it's hard to kind of differentiate. But in your case, do you struggle at all with actually communicating and educating clients, or is it they just find you and they're willing to just jump in because they need the service?
Yeah, I think to some degree it's easy in the sense of in order to, we're very small. So it doesn't take a ton of client volume or let's say lead volume in order to make sure that we've got enough business to keep ourselves going. So we're lucky in that case. I haven't scaled this thing yet. Maybe someday. So I'm able to do a lot of it just by through networking, trying to do a good job with my current customers so they stay around for a long period of time. And I think that the nature of what we do tends to be relatively sticky. You may not have a crystal clear idea of what you want to get done when you reach out to us. There might be, say, a little bit of diagnostic work that needs to happen, but pretty quickly we get to a roadmap of here's, let's say, top 5, 10 things that we want to do together. And then as we knock them out, we can add things because businesses never stop. There's always some new project or new product that we want to go to market with. And so the need for what we do kind of just keeps snowballing. And so we hold on to a lot of clients. Our retention rates are very good. So I don't know if that answers your question. I don't need to have sort of classic B2B SaaS, like I'm going to do a lot of outbounding work. I have a SDR team. I don't have that model at all. It's more classic professional services of just working your network, making sure that you're talking to the right people, and then trying to do a good job and hold on to customers for repeat business.
Yeah, I guess having the results speak for themselves and
Yeah.
referrals and the
Hopefully,
reputation. Yeah.
hopefully that's the idea. I mean, if we're able to make people successful, then we're successful. And it really is just one to one like that. So it's
Yeah.
really easy to stay aligned.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, especially if your value is tied to their own success. Like I think most people are willing to trust you if they know your income is dependent on theirs. So I guess what would be like top five things you would recommend or things that people are overlooking right now? Like you're working the front lines, you're helping these businesses out. What's something that you think people aren't giving enough attention to or should really know?
Okay. So we can probably get to 5, but there's 2 that just sort of jump out to me.
Mm-hmm.
And they have to do with the kind of clients that we work with and sort of maybe the deal flow aspect of it. So I came up through private equity. So I worked for a pretty prominent private equity firm as an operator, just initially as a chief of staff. And then I kind of got groomed to sort of be in a position to take on bigger roles. And during that process, I was involved in a lot of like, oh, we're going to acquire this portfolio company. We're going to do some M&A, bring on a handful of other organizations. And then it was initially my job to sort of do post integration work, particularly around go to market. And that's how I kind of got my feet wet in this market. So when I think about that stuff, and then I hear sort of the war stories of people that are, well, my company got acquired, or my private equity firm or my VC is telling me we need to go buy this company, and then we bought them, and it was just like, it was terrible. It was a crapshoot, and it was a horrible experience. And I listen to these stories, and I so often hear about people not doing proper due diligence on the marketing and sales side, and so they show up, and the investors have been told there's this tremendous amount of deal flow. The pipeline is flush. We're going to hit all of these growth targets going forward. And then they show up day one. It's actually like, well, that thing wasn't really there. And that opportunity is not really an opportunity. It's not qualified yet, but it was in the pipeline. So it made the pipeline look bigger. And everything is sort of like fluffy and overinflated. And it's like, well, it would have been very easy to involve, maybe someone like myself, but it doesn't have to be me, like in the process of vetting an acquisition to a pretty big degree. Cause I'll tell you, I've been around the block a lot of times. It would take me about 5 seconds to look at fluffy pipeline, be able to go, oh, that's not real.
Yeah.
And I think it's just a missed opportunity. I think a lot of value gets destroyed by not doing that piece of it. So that's the first thing that jumps out as just like a blinder for people. I'm not quite sure why. And then the second thing is that everybody wants shiny objects. Everyone wants shiny objects. So the number of people that make a name for themselves going on like a LinkedIn and posting about, there is value in AI, but a lot of it's just not proven yet. It's like cool ideas, and we haven't really seen it turn into anything that's going to like really help a company grow. And so we've got this like hype cycle thing going on. People need to be worried about that stuff. But like they also need to get themselves in shape in order to adopt that kind of stuff. So classic example is there's a series of tools out there that would help you forecast your sales over the next quarter. They're AI based. The AI essentially analyzes your CRM data and then predicts what's going to happen at the end of the quarter. Super duper valuable. You can save so much time by just relying on that, or at least using that as a piece to triangulate as you and your team develop your own forecasts.
Right.
Lots of value in that. If your data sucks though, and you don't have a methodology and you're not applying it consistently, and like your data is just all over the place, that AI tool is going to read a bunch of garbage and give you a bunch of garbage as a result.
Garbage in, garbage out. Yeah.
Absolutely. And the number of people that are super excited about that AI powered thing that don't understand that you need to do fundamentally appropriate things on the path to being ready to adopt something like that.
Yeah.
It's crazy. And they're always going to promise you that they can fix your problem. They're always going to promise you the best result from prior clients. If your ship's not in order, good luck. You're going to burn a lot of money and a lot of cycles trying to install something that's not going to create a lot of value. It's much easier to identify those fundamental problems and sort of build yourself up from the bottom. And it's a quick, like classic example. I go to a lot of places and I'll be like, okay, what's your North Star metric? Say financially. Say, oh, ARR. Okay, cool. ARR. What does ARR mean?
They don't know.
And I'll go around the table and I'll get 3 different answers. Or I'll get, they all kind of agree on the core components of it, but I'm like, okay, well, what in this scenario? How do you measure it in this scenario? How do you measure it in that scenario? And it's unbelievable how often there's a misunderstanding or a misalignment around the edge cases.
Oh my God.
Right.
Wow.
So like annual recurring revenue. Okay, fine. What happens if it's a, I'll actually ask for an equation. Okay. It's the average monthly revenue times 12. Fine. Okay, great. If that's your definition, what happens if it's less than a 12-month contract? Because a lot of people sell 6-month contracts or subcontract. Well, do you multiply it to make it a 12-month value, or you decrease the value to the 6-month thing? Because that's a big deal. That's a
Yeah.
big deal. Like, how do you compensate on it if you're just doubling the value of it on paper when you're actually only getting 6 months worth of guaranteed revenue? Do you pay the full amount or do you not? And how do you, like, comp plans? Boom, there's a whole work stream around comp plans. So like, these definitions are really important. Some people think it's one thing, some think it's another. There's a lot of things to look at. That's a very easy problem to fix, though. I know 2 or 3 different flavors of what an ARR equation looks like. What do you think about this one? What do you think about this one? All right, let's sit around the table for 15 minutes and we can settle this today. I can put this in a centralized location in a glossary of terms that everybody can have pointed at. And now that's not a problem anymore.
Yeah.
I can bake that into all of our systems and make sure that they all align. Super easy to do, super obvious, and absolutely necessary fix. But it's like those things get missed in a lot of organizations for years of executive turnover and A work and all this kind of stuff. And by the end of like 5-6 years down the line, a lot of companies can't agree with ARRs. And then you're just like,
Oh my God.
that's where we start. That's where we start.
Fair enough. Okay, wait. So I'm just curious about this. Like, I completely agree. I think the trend with AI right now is it's actually a little scary because there's so much AI generated content out there that it's like signal and noise is becoming like increasingly difficult to figure out what's actually of value out there. And I think especially in marketing too, like I'm seeing so many people just like do AI content creation and it's like it's literally garbage. Like it's like just people writing things that are almost just fluff. Like it's like there's no substance there. And then I'm also wondering, like, do you think all of this extra fluff that's being added, because there is definitely value to AI, and I think if you use it well, you have a much higher advantage because obviously it helps you save time in a lot of ways, but you have to know what you're doing. And the thing I'm wondering is if all of this garbage is coming in, what's feeding the AI back again? Like, do you think there's going to be a recurring cycle with like garbage data that's just inundating the AI like pool of information that it's pulling from and then just creating a really watered down version of information? Like, I don't know.
It's a
I'm
bit of
just,
that. It's a bit of that. So if you've got like an LLM that's ostensibly got access to the entire internet, everything that's ever been written, every Wikipedia page, etc., it's going to do a pretty good job of amalgamating that information into a piece of a response to you. It's like, who was the president in 1837? I have no idea, but I could click that and it's going to return something good to me. That's value added. It's going to save a lot of time. What it's not going to be able to do is at least not right now, is it give you that genuinely insightful and creative thing, because it's an amalgam of the source material. So it's a bit like a horse designed by a committee. It's a camel. Right now we have a camel. It's going to get better. It's going to get a lot better, and it's
for
going to
sure.
do it really quickly. So I'm less concerned about like, should we adopt AI? Is it going to replace it? It will do that
Yeah.
stuff. But right now, as a practitioner trying to help somebody out in this space, I'm not going to tell you to like fully automate and just let AI take over entirety of your outbounding, for example, or write all of your marketing copy. It can write a first draft, but you need to review it. There's too much hallucination still in there. Prompt engineering is a thing. Not everybody's good at that. And so I think it's going to, like you're pointing out, I think it's going to be a point of leverage for people. But I still think you need the human component. And I don't know, maybe there's something unique about the human mind that AI will never be able to copy. I'm still not sure that that's not the case, and that
It's
we
hard to
won't always
tell.
need people. But hypothetically, even if it got to the point of being a human, we're still going to want to buy from people because we're people. And that
100%.
I don't think you're going to get away from that.
I think actually the trend will probably be going towards more real experiences because we're getting so saturated with like digital and fake and automated experiences. I'm wondering, like, I actually think there probably will be a trend towards
I have a
human
Yeah,
real
I have
stuff.
a weird theory about that. I think you're spot on. I think you're spot on. I have been on record many times in several podcasts about thinking that AI is going to make us more human, and I think you're spot on. I think if you're talking about just like sales and marketing, I think the future is a marketing team of about 3 people, even at a big company, and a bunch of AI gadgets or agents. I think there's probably something similar on the sales side. I think we're still going to want to buy from people. I don't think you're just
Yeah.
going to like hit a button and walk away from your business and be like, whatever. There's too much risk there. I do think that you can do most of the outbounding, email writing, prospecting, whatever you do in B2B today. You can do most of it through AI, or you can leverage AI to get 90% of the way to a funnel. That's a huge step. I mean, that's night and day from where we were maybe 4 or 5 years ago. It's going to get better. So at some point, you might even be able to automate the outbounding because it's email writing. That's easier to do. And then you're going to be able to qualify pipeline. You're going to be able to get pretty far out of the marketing funnel and into what we now call the sales funnel because it's honestly, it's all the same thing.
Yeah.
But like you're going to get pretty far until you've got essentially qualified pipeline handed to a person that then has an agent sort of sitting next to them and can like efficiently get through it. But what's the value add for the person? They are relationship building. Humans are relational and social animals. We can't get away from our own DNA. Crafting a message. You're not going to want to give the final presentation over to AI entirety. It's just not going to happen. Legal, we're not going to hand that entirely off to a bot for a very, very long time. So there's like these final pieces, essentially the closing process.
Yeah.
Now take your hat off of 2025 and go back to, ever seen Glenn Ross?
I haven't.
It's an awesome, it was a Broadway show and then they made a movie about it. There's a lot of sales quotes that come from that. Just look for Glenn Ross quotes. It's like old school, manly man kind of sales from the 1960s, I think, 50s or 60s. Anyway, I think that we're going to go back to that. I think sales is going to be the job of like, you get a thing, it's your job to close it. Very personal. You're going to be talking human to human, maybe even door to door.
Door to door is rough. I've been there.
I mean, it's going to be about hosting dinners. It's going to be about flying to your client side again. It's going to be about like having FaceTime and getting to know the names of the kids of the person that you're selling to. Like that's the stuff that's going to win deals. That'll be the strategic edge that a salesperson can bring. And that means that you're going to have 3 or 4 sales killers on your sales team, and there's going to be no one else. That's your entire sales team. And if you think about all of the people that have been replaced, I'm saying hypothetically, it's like 15 years from now.
Yeah.
All of that is going to be underpinned by technology. Who's going to run the technology and make sure it all talks to each other? Go to market operations or whatever that ends up being. We are going to be so technologically centric. There's no option. Like you have to be at least starting to get on board and learning about this stuff, or else you're going to be left behind because you can't compete. If you're still humaning everything, you're going to be in a big struggle. So what am I looking at today? I'm looking at things that are actually driving value. So like all of the prospecting, enrichment, and researching can all be done through technology today.
Yep.
I used to hire people offshore, like $4 an hour or whatever, Upwork. I used Upwork. I like Upwork. I've got friends at Upwork. I would say, hey, can you go find me these personas? I want emails and phone numbers and titles and whatever.
That's so easy now.
Right? It's so easy now. You click a button and it's just like refresh. And you add to that just basic research, like go read the public filings of that company. Summarize it for me. Tell me the top 3 strategic points. Read my content and my website and figure out what I do well. And then go write me a little blurb about how what I do applies to their strategic goals. Have all of that done, drop it into the CRM, and then notify me anytime someone has a birthday or job change or whatever. And like all that's done. A human can't even stay on top of it.
It's crazy. Even for cold email, like in my experience working with doing cold email outreach using like certain AI tools, like it's insane the amount of outreach you can get and the response, and especially combined with like enriched leads, like it's more than people can handle. Like it's quite literally overwhelming.
Yeah.
And then the reply, like, here's where I've come into a bit of a snag is with, I mean, you can make an AI agent, let's say, that goes and reads through the lead and can reply. But like, I guess you have to let go to a degree of control if you want to let it take over all of your client relationships and everything. Like, I don't know, that's like kind of a weird spot because sometimes there's the AI, like an LLM might not have every bit of context that you do about what you do. And I think that information sometimes can really make a difference when you're reaching out and replying to a client, and it can make a big difference in the long-term sales process.
Yeah. Well, first you have to decide which model applies best to you. So if you're thinking about the strategy aspect of this, if you've got a closed market with big ticket items, let's say what you're selling is 6 figures a year, recurring revenue or larger, or you're just like a super big ticket item, like you sell MRI machines to hospitals.
Yeah.
There is a very clear boundary about who can afford that and who needs that. So let's say I'm in Chicago. Let's say there's 100 hospitals in Chicago. I've got 100 targets that could buy this thing.
Mm-hmm.
I would not hand that off entirely to a bot.
Yeah.
Flip it the other way. If you're in a transactional business, let's say you have a freemium model. You're like product-led growth, and you're kind of trying to drive people to that initial test, like whatever. Um, sorry, it's early in the morning for me. I haven't had enough coffee. But like, if you've got 10,000, 100,000 different targets that you could go after,
Yeah.
and let's say if you get them on board, it's $9.99 a month. You can hand that up because the risk is lower, and you're gonna win relatively well across that. So start with, what is the goal in mind? What does my market look like? How am I attacking that? And like, only AI let the AI prove to you that it can handle these higher value use cases. Because I
Yeah.
agree with you, especially in the I'm selling MRI machines to hospital scenario, knowing the context of the last conversation and the husband's name of the woman that you're trying to sell to and the birthdays of the kids, and like going out and grabbing coffee one time, hey, I'm going to be passing through your area, like those personal things. A bot's not going to be there at the table with you while you're having coffee and listening to what you talk about, probably, maybe in the future.
Yeah.
Like, that's the stuff. So everybody has to think all of this stuff in the context of what works for my business, what makes sense for my go-to-market motion. And if they can do that, then I think any normal person can
Yeah.
justify whether that I should buy that thing or install that thing or hand that all off to AI.
Yeah. That's fair. And when you reflect on your journey, like you've worked at 4 companies, now you have your own, what's like a mindset shift that you had that had like a big impact on maybe how you approach GTM or RevOps or your own business in general, if you have any?
Yeah, well, I mean, it was a period in time. I can even pinpoint. It's like 2016 and 2017. I was never a marketer. I was never a salesperson. I wasn't even like an operations person, really. Actually, it was coming from product. I helped as part of a product development team at a Fortune 250 company. So that I got technology. I get kind of that. I get the businessy stuff, but I came to this really open-minded and without a lot of preconceived notions, and honestly, without a lot of scar tissue. And I think that helped me kind of open the aperture there. Then I was placed into a training program that taught me how to run B2B. In this case, it was software or data as a service companies, but just sort of B2B companies. And so I got to sit essentially in the mind space of a CFO. I got to sit in the mind space of a COO and a CEO and a head of HR and a head of sales and all these different roles as part of that kind of like year-long program. There are very few, if any, people in go-to-market operations who have ever had the luxury of sitting through a program like that and being it was not easy. It was,
How did you find this program? It sounds like very,
I'm so lucky. I got hired into this private equity firm that I never applied to. They came to me. I do not know why. I just got a call essentially one day. Lucky star. No answers there. And then I was the chief of staff to the CEO of one of the portfolio companies the private equity firm owned. And every year each company kind of puts forward one name to go into the hat for the private equity firm wide sort of future executives of America training program. And I had done a good enough job apparently to get my name put forward one year. And that was it. So I suppose go where there's opportunity and try to do a good job when you're there. And then things can kind of sometimes work out. But I recognize I'm super lucky, which is why I want to give back, which is why I want to help share the knowledge. But going through that program and having the luck of going through that program, having already gone to business school prior to that, having worked in product, having worked in finance, I don't think of go-to-market operations the way someone who kind of came up as a Salesforce admin did. And that's kind of the secret sauce, I think, or the aha moment maybe, is that everybody else that went through that program, I don't know a single one that's in go-to-market ops. Everybody else is a CRO or a VP of product or a head of HR or whatever. I was the loser who went over here to this thing that no one's heard about. And that was kind of the aha moment, is like, if you think about this go-to-market thing in a way that like a CEO thinks about the business, you can get a lot of leverage out of it, because there's not really any other piece of a company that can pull the profitability / efficiency lever and the growth lever from the same seat other than the CEO and the CFO. I'm convinced of it. And you add to that the fact that the technology is slowly eating all the other departments. This role, I honestly think, is like, it should report to the CEO, and in 5 years, it might be a C-suite role. Like, it might be.
Yeah. No, 100%. And especially with the way things are going, I think the strategy and creative roles are the ones that are going to be left standing, because that's not as easily replaceable. And especially if you have all of your background, like knowledge from each area of the business, each role, like you know how to pull the right information and how to bring things together, I guess, in a more unique way. So yeah, that's really
It's a
interesting.
translation service in many ways. It's sort of like, well, I'll go talk to the guy who's coding a flow rule in Salesforce or whatever, understand that well enough to be able to translate that into something that I then present to a board or a
Breaking the
CEO.
silos.
Right? It's like, yes, I speak Klingon. What do you need? And it's a really nice tool set. Whenever you have the question of the technology or the AI, because that's obviously top of mind these days, ask yourself, put yourself in a position where you have cancer. Horrible place to be. You're stressed out. You're scared. Your doctor comes to you and you have an option. Do I want to talk to a doctor who has an AI assistant, or I just want to outsource this to the computer and take whatever treatment the computer spits out? And be like, well, the computer actually has really great results. Sometimes it's better than the person. What are you going to pick? You're going to pick the person. I'm not even going to give a pause to let people think about it. You're going to pick the person with the AI as an assistant, because we trust humans. There's a certain level of expertise and a certain type of field that we're not going to let the reins off of for a while.
Yeah.
You said strategy and creative. I completely agree with that. I also think it's sort of like executive functions, like a cancer doctor, like a CEO. Like, I'm just not going to hand that off to a computer ever.
Yeah.
Humans don't. I don't know if they'll ever get to that trust.
But what's left then? What's left?
I don't know. I've seen Wall-E. I think we sit in like hover chairs and get fat.
Yeah. I mean, that's one way.
The future is bright.
Yep. They knew what was going on. If you were to take like go-to-market and RevOps, what separates someone who's good at that versus someone who's like a superstar, like who really knows what they're doing?
I think I think a lot of people start with the technical know-how. They know how to add a field in Salesforce. They know how to build a workflow. They know how to integrate HubSpot and things. Then I think there's a far fewer number of people that understand the business aspect of it. I think that skill set, like if you're an MBA and you're coming out of school, go get to go-to-market operations, because like your training as a strategist or a general business person is going to serve you really, really well. I think there's a lot of opportunity there. But anyway, there's very few people that do that piece as well. So if you've got both of those, you're well on your way. And then it's the I'm going to use some foul language here, get shit done. I think it's the get shit done that separates good people from great people. So someone that can put together a project plan, put together a roadmap, and actually go knock it out without a lot of supervision and hit the dates that they say they're going to hit. And it's like the execution piece of it.
Mm-hmm.
I think in every role that separates you, in this
Yeah,
role,
bias
it
to
definitely
action,
separates you.
100%. Yeah.
Because I would say 90% of the cases that I've worked on in the past, both as a head of this department, also as an advisor or a consultant in this department or a fractional person, you're building, you're building, you're building, you're building. People know what needs to get done. Your job is to like build a new tool, build a new process,
Yeah.
build a new workflow, build whatever. And if you don't have the get shit done factor, you're just going to spin and not go anywhere, and people are going to notice very fast.
Yeah, I think you make a lot more progress if you have like two choices. And at least this happened for me a lot where you're spending so much time trying to decide which one's the right one that if you had just taken the time deciding to pick one and try and then pivot if it didn't work out, you would have gotten much further than just the decision paralysis of which one's the better one.
Done is better than perfect.
100%. It took me a really long time to accept that because I I don't know. It was just a really hard thing to let go of the control. Like when you know exactly what you want to do and it's not right versus just this is what it is and we're moving on.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And if I'm talking to my go-to-market friends out there, start with the end in mind, and it's usually a report they are trying to write. It's amazing how often it's like a report. We want to be able to visualize a certain thing or measure a certain thing or report on a certain thing. Okay, if you're going to do that, then what data do you need to capture? How are you going to capture that? How does that fit in the workflow? And it very quickly becomes, oh, we need to do a project to, I don't know, add a field to a page or something. Very easy to do. Now go do it. And
Yeah.
I've never actually struggled with the analysis paralysis aspect of it. I guess maybe I'm lucky in that, but you still need to think out, what am I doing, and constantly prioritize, because in this job, the ground shifts under your feet a lot, and yesterday's priorities are no longer today's. And so constantly prioritize and then just take action on the top thing on the list, whether it's ready to bake 100% or if it's perfect or not, just take action on the top thing.
And for the companies out there that are just starting out, maybe a new software startup or whatever, who trying to gain some traction, what's like the best advice you could give them to focus on right now? What are the key things they need to get right now, and the things that aren't as important that are just kind of distractions?
If you're very, very new, just keep working on the product until you have some semblance of product market fit. Good product wins so often, and aspire to be a product driven company, not especially in B2B, not a sales or marketing driven company, because that can be successful. But my opinion is it's not sustainable, because eventually you can't sell a really bad product, no matter how much money you spend on marketing. So if you're really small, focus on product market fit. That will inform you as you get a little bit bigger of who your target customer is and what their needs are. So it's kind of the natural progression of just, hey, we have a hypothesis. We're going to build a product around the hypothesis that it fills a need. Then we go out, we find a fit with the market, certain price point, certain deal type. So you got kind of go to market fit. Expand on and understand your ICP and your personas as early as possible. And if you do that, you're like so far ahead of most people. A lot of people create a product, it sells, they try to find someone who looks like the one that they bought it the first time, not understanding really what the product's need is, serving and all this kind of other stuff. And they sell like 5 or 10 of these things, and then they kind of lose their way because they never really understood the customer. It's amazing how often, again, it's like that definition of ARR, how often I go into an organization and they can't tell me who their target customer is. They'll give me 19 different profiles of customers of who was bought in the past, and it's just scattershot, and it causes a lot of pain.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, as someone who came from a more UX product design background, personas and understanding that was such a big thing. And when people weren't focusing on catering the product to the specific persona, it can be so frustrating because it really ruins like the value that you're differentiating yourself with.
If the most common reason a company has flatlined, in my experience, having looked under the hood of like many, many, many dozens of companies, is they start doing custom deals for every large deal that they do. Like the
Mm,
product doesn't quite fit the need that they're trying to do, but they want to sell that big deal and get that big logo. And so they'll say, hey, do this custom job for you if you buy my product. They go and they do the custom product. And then the next one, it's a different custom thing. And the next one, it's a different custom thing. Before you know it, all of your engineering time is building all those custom things that you sold already that aren't working yet.
yeah.
And you're chasing, you got a dragon by the tail at that point. Like you are in trouble. How do you get away from it? You are product led. You're incredibly knowledgeable about what problems you're solving. And you're developing, if you develop new products, they're in adjacent things that help a virtuous cycle of growing your TAM, but not straying too far away where you've got two entirely disparate businesses you're trying to run.
Hmm.
It's just good product management, frankly. It's just good product
Okay.
management. It's huge.
Yeah. And if let's say a company's now at a point where they have a good product market fit, they know that they can deliver a lot of value to their clients or their target audience, but they're having trouble communicating, like it's not clicking with the audience that they're trying to target. How would you recommend they approach that problem?
Sure. So I'm a big proponent of what they used to call customer advisory boards. So basically tapping your best customers. In this case, it might only be two or three if they're quite small, but asking them, why did you buy? Who did you compare us against? What are you seeing the most value out of, et cetera, et cetera. And just try to, one, learn those things, but then also try to capture some quotes that can be used as content. Because I think at the end of the day, you've got two problems. One, can you internally articulate why people are coming to you? And if you can do that, then you're well on your way. If that's a problem, then I would ask your customers what their opinion is and make sure that it's still resonating. Whatever problem they were trying to solve is still resonating. Assuming that you have an internal, clear understanding of what problems you solve and how you solve it, and you've got a couple of customer, let's say, if you've got a case study or a proper story or something, that would be awesome. But even if you don't have that, then take a look at your marketing funnel. Are people aware of who you are? Um, are do they, when they, let's say, go to your website, they're aware, they're like, oh, interesting. Let me click on that. They go to your website. Are the breadcrumbs there to lead them from knowing who you are to like, what problem that I solve? And, oh, if I also have that problem, what are some companies that look like me that have had success working with said company in solving those problems, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Like you look at the content strategy and make sure the conversion of rates and all that kind of stuff are pretty close to benchmark. And yeah, diagnose your problems from there. I know I ramble, but I have worked with companies that are very big names who had spent so much money on awareness marketing. Their name was everywhere. And they hadn't spent really any time putting together anything beyond awareness in the funnel.
Mm,
And they can have,
I see.
they could have had so much more success by taking a little bit less of that awareness and a little bit more of that case studies, research, quotes from leading people in the field, et cetera, and then just building that story. If you get people investigating the problem, you're halfway done.
Yeah. Okay.
I don't know if that's helpful. Hopefully that it is.
Yeah, it's easy, I guess, for smaller companies that don't have large teams and they're limited on budget to know where to focus their efforts. So
Sure.
focusing on proving case studies and value from customers would probably be the first thing. Because like if you get awareness and you have nothing to convert them, what's the point of the awareness?
Well, also you can get awareness for free.
Yeah.
So, well, close to free, relatively cheap. What is a cold prospecting email but an awareness campaign? It's, hey, I exist. If you have this problem, you should really take a look at us.
Hmm.
So you can cold prospect. And if you've got kind of the middle and late stage funnel stuff, you could either send a link to your website or you could send that material on as part of your prospecting campaign. And you can sort of bootstrap your way to some awareness
Yeah.
early days. It's not the end of the world. It's not the end of the world. So yeah, if you have a pretty clear understanding for what problems you serve and maybe some customer validation of that, you can make a lot of hay.
Cool. Awesome. So then I guess what's new for your company this year? Big 2025 goals. And I guess what are you doing to reach them?
Yeah. So my goals are I want to develop more partnerships.
Mm-hmm.
Most of the work that we do is in partnership with organizations that do things like business development, enablement, or sales coaching, things like that. I will help hold my hand up. I'm not the guy that's going to teach your team how to sell and how to negotiate. That's not what I do. I value those people. They're worth their weight in gold, let's say. But nearly everywhere that I go in, if there's a business development need, there's probably a systems need or a organizational question, comp plans, dashboards. All that stuff is needed in addition to better coaching for sales, building out business development teams, as an example. So just fostering more partnerships as far as I can go there. And then I feel like the opportunity exists to do more vertical integration. So adding more resources to my team that would be able to do direct sort of data enrichment through AI, as an example. I don't presently have the bandwidth to personally do those things. And so I will probably be looking for some expertise there, but I'm starting to kick the tires on that idea and how that would look. So those are sort of the two things I'm facing this year.
Awesome. Okay. And is there anywhere people can contact you if they're interested in reaching out or maybe uh, are looking to get some help with their businesses?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Still the best thing. I'm a small but mighty team. We've got a few researchers over here, but we're not big by any means. Just getting this up off the ground as well. So the best place to reach me is either Joel at Arnold Go to Market Advisors. So it's Arnold GTM Advisors.com. And then I respond to almost all my LinkedIn outreach still to this day. So feel free to reach out to me there. And yeah, if anybody wants to even just talk. They don't have to be actually looking for solving necessarily a business problem, but if they just want to talk about the topic areas we've talked about today or anything, feel free to reach out. I'm all ears.
Awesome. Thank you so much for coming on to the podcast.
Of
I
course.
learned a lot today.
Good, good, good. I am long-winded and I apologize for any of that, but hey, know thyself and I'll try to do better next time.